Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Welcome to today's show. It's going to be a very interesting show, and I really appreciate you for joining us and hopefully watching this in the future. I'd like to thank everybody who actually watched the last podcast that we did, myself and Brother Yusuf. I'm really happy, and I like to thank the people. I really genuinely like to thank the people for actually tuning in and watching the last podcast that myself and Brother Yusuf did was a couple of days ago, to be honest, and the figures of viewership really kind of like took me back. I know previously myself and Brother Yusuf have been shadow banned on various platforms. We had uh, emails sent to us threatening us to kind of like take away our social media has been hacked. Our phone numbers were hacked. But alhamdulillah, we continued with exploring this aspect of the situation in Palestine, especially the people of Gaza. And today's show, as you can see, is actually titled, you know, Gaza bleeds while FIFA entertains, and it is shocking. And I really wanted to unpack this with Brother Yusuf, and I wanted to kind of like continue from last show where people from the Palestinian official sources estimate that more than 750,000 Palestinians have been detained by Israel. A United Nations cited figure says more than 800,000 Palestinians were imprisoned between 1967 and 2006. In April 2026, a prisoner support and human rights associations reported 9,600 Palestinian political prisoners were in Israeli custody, including 3,532 held under administrative detention. Basically means they were imprisonment without charge or trial, alongside another 342 children and 84 women. So we really want to unpack that, and I really want to, grow from this particular narrative that as the World Cup is taking place, countries have flown over. People are going to be distracted in watching the World Cup while our brothers and sisters in Gaza continue to suffer and so forth. So, Brother Yusuf, thank you for joining me again, and I really appreciate you backstage. I was complimenting you, and again in front of the people. I want to tell the audience who watched this show, I learned so much from Brother Yusuf. I really do. He's a very powerful speaker, a very powerful debater, and it's an honor. I've known Brother Yusuf for maybe 4 years now, 5 years, since we've been highlighting this issue in the aspects of Gaza and other than that. So, Brother Yusuf, I really thank you. I'd like to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving me this ability to sit with you and learn from you. And I really appreciate you, Brother Yusuf Ismail. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Muhammad. Really, your words are kind. I feel the same. I appreciate everything that you do. I appreciate your sincerity. I appreciate your knowledge. I learned quite a bit, and I think in this field, information is reciprocal. And I think let's get these voices basically out there. Let's get the discourse out, as I've always basically stated. You made an interesting point. At this juncture, we are basically witnessing the World Cup. As all people, I mean, myself particularly growing up, we were fanatical about football, not as much as when we were kids, but when it came to the World Cup, it was something that basically fascinated us. And I think there was an interesting quote that I saw by, I think just a couple of days ago about the World Cup and about the idea of what the World Cup stands for and what its significance is. It was something along the line where it quotes I think a Roman emperor or something along that particular line. I'm trying to get the quotation and the meme that was circulating. I think it's basically something along the line. I don't know if you can see my phone, but if it's clear or if you can see it from that distance.
Actually,
You can't see
take
it,
it
but
to more this time.
effectively, it's got a picture of the Colosseum, and it's got the World Cup stadium in Los Angeles interspersed together. And it's got there the topic on the top, the quotation: "Give them bread and circuses, and they will never revolt." And that's quite telling, because effectively, that's what the Romans did to subdue the population. They had the circuses, they had the gladiators, they had murder on public display in the circuses. And we don't, well, I mean, sometimes we do, but effectively, if you look at these major tournaments, or whether it's UFC or boxing, or more particularly on a more grander scale, like the World Cup, that essentially is something which basically controls all of us. And I'll be the first to admit, have I had, when it comes to something like the football and the soccer World Cup, even though I'm not as fanatical as I was about football as a youth, as a teenager, still, that memory is internalized within you. And so when you see the World Cup, or when the World Cup comes, you want to watch it. You want to view every game if you can. You want to view the main matches. You want to see Brazil, you want to see France, Argentina, and so on. That's the kind of addiction that it has created, and that's the entertainment that FIFA basically gives, whilst the entire world bleeds. And this is one tournament where, for example, you see Muslim countries have been openly discriminated against. The Senegalese football team, and Senegal has a large Muslim population, their players were subjected to cavity searches and body searches at the airport, unprecedented. A well-known Somali referee was sent away and not granted a visa. The Iranian national team, the staff members are not allowed inside the country by virtue of the fact that they are now part and parcel of the ICRG in Iran. So a number of countries in Africa, but predominantly Muslim countries, the Muslim fans are not allowed to enter. So this is basically what has happened, is that FIFA has, it has obviously always been a capitalist enterprise, but it has basically merged itself with fascism. And this reminds me of the 1936 Olympics. If you look at the 1936 Olympics, do you know where they were held? You recall where they were held, Brother Muhammad? It was held in Nazi Germany. This was before the advent of the Second World War, just before the war commenced. And there you had a notorious or famous athlete by the name of Jesse Owens, who won the 100 meters and was snubbed by Hitler. But you had the echelons of the British establishment and the British monarchy. I think, if I'm not mistaken, King Edward, or some of the monarchies that were basically there and were adulating Hitler and were with him and in his midst. And you transmogrify and you go from 1936 right up to 2026, which is something like more than at least 90 years later. And you see the same thing that basically happens. So I want to basically share a piece with you from Al Jazeera, which is a very touching article, an extremely touching article. And it goes something like this. The world celebrates. Here we are. If you can share this to the screen. The world celebrates whilst Gaza burns, watching the World Cup from Gaza. You got that on your screen. And what it basically shows you here is that it shows football players. And what do you see there? What do you see? These are amputees. Watching the World Cup from Gaza, these are amputees. So if you go down to the article here by Maram Humaid, in what remains of the Palestine Stadium in Gaza City, Ali Tafesh chases a ball while leaning on his crutches, exchanging passes with his teammates from Gaza Al Irada, a football club. This is the football club, Al Irada, the Wool of Gaza, a football club made of amputee players. These are people who could have gone to the World Cup had Palestine qualified. The stadium is a refugee camp. It's far removed from the grandiose arenas that will host the World Cup in North America in 2026, beginning on Thursday, which is this past Thursday, since this article was dated. But for Ali and his teammates, it is one of the last usable sport spaces available in Gaza as a result of Israel's genocidal war, which has killed nearly 73,000 players. The players hold on to football as a means of survival more than a sport. They are trying to reclaim fragments of their former lives despite months of loss, injuries, and widespread destruction. And he says that just 4 years ago, at the Qatar World Cup, Ali, who was 24, was watching it in a cafe in Gaza, surrounded by festive seasons. Everyone supported a team. The atmosphere was beautiful. Today, the situation in Gaza is difficult. We are exposed to bombardment and death. This is him. He's an amputee. He was a player who cannot play football anymore. He plays with one leg. This is a footballer. Take off your hats to them. Gianni Infantino, the hypocrite, running FIFA like a private fiefdom, no different from Sepp Blatter, the corrupt megalomaniac, needs to take off their eyes to these individuals here. These are the people. He says in February 2024, his family was murdered, killing his mother and brother whilst doctors were forced to amputate one of his legs. After months of painful treatment, Ali found out about Gaza Al-Irada through friends who had previously undergone amputations. Having previously been a sprinter, this is a sprinter, participated in local championships, the law graduate was looking for another sporting venue. After his leg was amputated, he lost hope. He was a champion. He had medals. And his friends playing at Irada came to visit him. I asked if I could join them, and they welcomed me, who began playing about 6 months ago. So basically, these are players. There are no sports shoes. Safety items are unavailable. We play with the very little available and try to rebuild football with our simple means. As the world focuses to watch the world's best footballers in Canada, Mexico, and the United States, Ali feels that Gaza exists in a parallel world, cut off not only by war, but also by the absence of basic sporting needs and infrastructure. We play with very little available and try to rebuild football with our simple means. Look at this. These are the players who are amputated. This is how they are playing football. Whilst we are watching the superstars on the global stage, these people are the real superstars. These are the unsung heroes. These are the real football stars. You want to hear about the Messis and Mbappes and who else is there? Lamal and all these other players. These are the real players playing with crutches. The Gaza Al-Irada team includes many players who lost limbs during the war, previous military escalations or other incidents, who speak of many challenges as they strive to continue sporting careers. Watching the World Cup is deeply painful for us, Saadi tells Al Jazeera. As an amputee football team, we were supposed to participate in qualifiers for international tournaments this year, but the war prevented us. It is very painful because we are absent and forgotten. We always dream of raising the Palestinian flag in international competitions and proving our presence despite all circumstances, but the war has affected every aspect of life, including sports. So you know what? In stadiums today, you can get arrested in the United States if you raise the Palestinian flag. You can show the Israeli flag. You can show every other flag. But if you raise the Palestinian flag in the United States, in stadiums, particularly if you're a foreign nation, you can get arrested. That's a reality of football in North America today. I don't know if the same principle applies in Mexico or Canada, but certainly in the United States, they are clamping down on any kind of Palestinian protests that may take place within the stadium or outside the stadium itself. And then he goes on to speak about FIFA. He adds that the destruction of sports infrastructure has made the resumption nearly impossible, while expressing frustration what he describes as FIFA failure to deliver on its promises. FIFA has not delivered anything in support of Palestinian supports. This is a multi-billion dollar entity. We urgently need rehabilitation of sport facilities and stadiums that were completely destroyed so we can revive sporting activity. In February, FIFA did announce a partnership to launch a program, and they wanted to create about a national stadium with a capacity of 20,000 spectators, 50 mini pitches, all of that. None of that has been fulfilled. None of that has been fulfilled. And they basically give a response. It'll be in line with ongoing monitoring of safety and security conditions. It means it's not going to happen. Al Jazeera reached out to FIFA for comment, but has not received a reply before publication. This is how they play. Look how they play football. Playing football is not necessarily an easy sport. But they're playing with the Al Rihla, the original football that was used in Qatar, the 2022 World Cup. The difference 4 years makes. He was a player 4 years ago. Now he plays with one leg. There's a huge gap between 2022 and today. As fans around the world prepare to celebrate the opening of the football tournaments, Saudi carries a different message, and that's his message which I want to read out. We hope the world sees the Palestinian people as a people who deserve life. We hope Palestine remains present in stadiums and stands, that athletes speak about our suffering, and that they support these athletes so they can continue everything, despite everything that they have endured. This is it. These are the individuals that are there. Frustration and isolation, playing in a makeshift ground. A makeshift. Look at their training sessions within rubble. This is where they're playing. Within rubble. And you know what's also terrible? The genocide in Gaza has also prevented the Palestinian journalists who travel, and these are sports journalists, who traveled and covered the tournament in the past, over the past decade. They are now prevented from basically leaving the country. They're totally prevented. You have one journalist, his name is Yusuf Balushe. 4 years ago, Yusuf was amongst 24 sports journalists selected from Gaza to cover the World Cup in Qatar. He was chosen through a competitive process that drew something like about 79 applicants. And they had different credentials. They worked with the African and Asian football federations. And he had hoped that the 2026 World Cup would be the next World Cup that he would basically engage in. But that journey now has basically come to an abrupt halt because Israel will not let them leave Gaza. He cannot get any accreditation, even though he has been invited. He is not allowed to leave Gaza. He's registered. He was also registered in December for covering the World Cup draw that took place. He couldn't go. Over the past 3 years, these opportunities have basically arisen. But because of the closure of the crossings, these journalists cannot basically leave. You have another journalist, an individual called Ilhab, originally from the Jabalia camp. He was displaced something like about 9 times since the first day of Israel's war on the enclave, and he was moving between locations more than 13 times. And with the tournament now kicking off, the build-up of familiarity that has basically happened, he has registered, but he can't leave. This is the problem. He can't leave. Their homes are destroyed. So it's a kind of a complete different world that you basically face. In 2022...
Sorry, Yusuf, I just want to add something.
Go ahead.
I remember the notable journalist, Shireen Abu Akleh, who was a reporter for Al Jazeera, and in 2022, she was literally shot in the face by Israeli armed forces. There was a huge investigation. Yes, they admitted she was shot by Israeli forces, but prior to that, they were denying that particular allegation. And then, of course, on the 14th of May, of course, she was being, mourned. She's put into the coffin and taken to a final resting place. And of course, the Israeli armed forces broke into the particular compound and started to beat up the mourners and the individuals who were carrying her casket. And this actually sparked, condemnation from the United Nations and the United States. At that particular time, Joe Biden, of course, was in power. He was the president. But still to this day, no Israeli armed forces member has been charged for this murder. And I just wanted to share that with you because, unfortunately, these names that we are mentioning now, they are figures of the past. Because we're so concentrated on now, we forget the people who have gave their lives, sacrificed their lives for highlighting, the bleeding of Gaza. Okay, and we are being distracted now with the World Cup. We've been distracted with Iran. We're being distracted, and here in the UK, we're being distracted with the far right and immigration and migration. But we need to remember these people who sacrificed themselves to highlight the Palestinian struggle. I just wanted to share that with you, Brother Yusuf. I'm sure you remember Shireen.
No, of course. In fact, I think people need to know this. So, just if you are viewing in and channeling, let me just give you the brief background on, that I'm glad Brother Muhammad mentioned. Shireen Abu Akleh. She was a journalist. She was an American journalist. I think for Al Jazeera, I'm not mistaken. The issue that comes out is that in 2022, I think May, and this was before the World Cup, she was shot. She was shot dead whilst covering the Israeli Defense Force killing Palestinians. Israeli officials, first, including the then Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, this repulsive, terrible individual, he made the claim on Israeli mainstream media and in an official statement that Abu Akleh was killed by gunfire from Palestinian militants during a firefight in Jenin on the West Bank. That was shown to be a lie. Israeli human rights organizations, B'Tselem, and multiple international forensic investigations then used unrelated, proved that the IDF basically used unrelated video footage of Palestinian fighters in a different alleyway to support their initial narrative. So there were pictures of Palestinian fighters in a totally different area, and they used that as a basis to show that these Palestinians had killed her. For months, the IDF maintained that she was caught in the crossfire of an active military operation. The contradiction showed, the video and the audio evidence proved, that there were no armed confrontations in the immediate vicinity of the journalist prior to the shooting. Open source analysis basically showed that targeted volleys were fired directly at the press group, at the journalist, by the Israeli Defense Force, by this terrorist outfit. And these journalists had blue helmets and they had vests marked press. And Shireen Abu Akleh had a vest marked as press. By September 2022 of the same year, facing immediate pressure and intense pressure by both ballistic reviews, even by the United States and the Washington Post, the IDF then acknowledged that there was a high probability that the bullets were fired by the Israeli soldiers. And despite that acknowledgement, despite knowing who the Israeli shooter was, up to today, 13th of June, 2026, the Israeli soldiers refused to publicly identify the shooter. They've declined to initiate criminal charges of murder, and they've made the claim that no one will be punished. B'Tselem, the Israeli human rights organization, has condemned this as a whitewash, and the journalist family continuously criticizes the lack of accountability. And these independent forensic investigations by groups like B'Tselem and Al Jazeera, and even the U.S. government, in assessing ballistic evidence, shows that the ballistics come from the IDF, but they haven't, because it means nothing. They've killed now close to 200 to 300 journalists in Gaza since the genocide commenced. Who cares from their perspective about Palestinian journalists who were invited to cover the World Cup, were having their families blown up, reduced to a status of being amputees, and even their footballers are being totally destroyed? This is the reality of what we basically have. I mean, I just want to check up here. Footballers in Gaza who were murdered. I think Gary Lineker, and all kudos to him. That was one of the reasons why he was kicked out of BBC. That's why I think the UK audience, we can't have direct access to BBC in South Africa unless we've got a VPN. But if you watch your BBC broadcast of the World Cup, the popular figure for the past 2 decades has been Gary Lineker, I believe, as a host, and before that, Des Lynam. But he's not there because he's spoken out for and on behalf on Gaza. Here, one of the issues is that you're looking at something like approximately 400. Suleiman al-Obaid, that was the individual I'm talking about. He was called the Palestinian Pele. I think that's the individual that Lineker spoke about. He was a striker that scored over 100 goals and 24 official matches for the Palestinian national team. He was killed by Israeli forces in southern Gaza whilst waiting for humanitarian aid. This is an individual that is looking for humanitarian aid, food, whilst your UK footballers playing in the Premier League and most playing in the World Cup, earning more than heart surgeons. I mean, who's the guy, the highest paid footballer in the United Kingdom? Erling Haaland, the son of Alf Inge Haaland. How much is he earning a week? £500,000 a week. How much is that? I mean, that's close to 20 million rands or 10 million rands a week. £500,000 a week. That's about close to £2 million a month. Is that a lot of money? Is £2 million a lot of money, Mohammed? And the problem of all of this is that while these people are overpaid and in inflated figures, these individuals are basically dying. So you look at other people, Mohammed Barakat, known as a legend of Khan Yunus. He was a player who played for the Ahli Gaza Football Club, one of the first players in Gaza to score 100 career goals. He was murdered in this March, on an airstrike on his home. Hani Al-Masdar, he was a former player and he was a coach of the esteemed Palestinian Olympic football team. He was murdered. There are approximately 800 total athletes and sports officials who have been killed. None of them were Hamas. And approximately 90% of Gaza's facilities have been destroyed.
Can I add something? It's not just the male athletes are being arrested and detained and unalived. It's even female athletes. The Israeli women's football team, Rand Halawani, she was detained and she's still being detained by the Israeli forces, a former Palestinian football player. It's like not just men, it's women athletes also being detained, randomly picked up from various locations. The Israeli forces do not they don't like kind of like wait for you to kind of like come to the police station and hand yourself in. No, you could be in the bank, you could be at home, you could be at work, whatever you're doing. The police force or the army will turn up and detain you. No information is given to your loved ones where you're being detained. It's a very long process. So yeah, the Israeli military also arrested Natalie Abu Dia. Okay, he's a student in Bitzit University, and 3 other Palestinian women in occupied West Bank on Tuesday. The military said in a statement that the 4 women were suspected of promoting terrorist activities and additional terrorist-related activities. Okay, the women football players, okay, and they've been detained. And they've been detained for months on end. And of course, myself and Brother Yusuf highlighted the aspects of and this is going to be very graphic, my dear brothers and sisters, and I really want you to think about this, what is actually happening to the detainees. They are being stripped, they are beaten, they are being raped. And when I mean raped, they're actually, the Israeli forces are using dogs. They're using dogs. I don't want to be too graphic, Brother Yusuf. It is disgusting, and it's not just like hearsay. Official organizations are putting a case together that there's so many detainees after a long period of being detained, and they have the same story. They're having the same story, that they are tied up, their ankles are tied up, and the armed forces use, a large dog. I don't want to go into too much graphic use of, because it makes my stomach sick, and I'm sure the audience can understand where I'm going with this. But it's disgusting. It really is. So, so far, the Palestinian Authority announced in late May that more than 9,400 Palestinians were in Israeli jails, including Palestinians who are citizens of Israel. And these are all athletes. Sorry, Brother Yusuf, I just wanted to share that thought. Mike is in the chat right now. Mike, if you want to come on, hit the link. I'll put the link in the chat. We'd love to hear from you regarding this particular topic. Go ahead.
Just share the screen, brother Muhammad, the one that I've got right now. I'm going to come to the story about the dogs because people don't believe that. But just to give people the figures whilst they are busy watching the World Cup. And if I can just go, here we are. Yeah, I'm just going to go here. And let me go up. Can you see that? It's got there over 800 athletes killed in Gaza amidst Israel genocide. And this was last year. But if you go further down, it gives you that the Palestinian Football Association said 421 football players were amongst the 808 athletes killed in Gaza over the past 22 months as of 2025, and nearly half of them were children. And the last victim was a Palestinian national football player, Suleiman Al-Ubaid, who was killed on Wednesday, 2025. So whilst you're watching the Football World Cup, whilst you're watching the global showpiece, think for a while about these footballers who either are amputated or either are killed. And these are footballers that are not just they're murdered through being killed or die through starvation. Where's FIFA? Where's FIFA's concern? Where are the players that are earning millions and close to billions? I mean, if you look at someone like, all kudos to Cristiano Ronaldo for standing up for Palestine. But if you look at someone like Messi, who has been known to be Israeli supportive, his annual salary is larger than the GDP of many countries. It's astronomically massive on such a scale. And this is the reality of the situation. Stadiums, gyms, football clubs, all destroyed in relation to that. But whilst you raise the point of dogs, I did, in fact, I don't know if I shared this with you. I don't think I shared this. I shared the original one from last year, the B'Tselem report, Welcome to Hell. There was a new document, which I don't think I've shared. It's this document here, published in January 2026, which I urge people to go and watch and read when they have the time. If you can share this on your screen, Mohammed. This is called Living Hell. This goes back to a lot of what you said. The Israeli prison system as a network of torture camps, content warning sexual violence, including descriptions of rape and other forms of sexual violence. Living Hell follows on B'Tselem's 2024 report. We dealt with this in detail. Welcome to Hell. This is the 2026 report. The updated information indicates that Israeli prisons continue to function as a network of torture camps for Palestinians, with the systematic abuse even more extensive before. This includes physical and psychological abuse, inhuman conditions, deliberate starvation, and denial of medical care, all of which has led to numerous deaths. Some witnesses also describe undergoing or witnessing sexual violence or abuse. I think this is a report You can download where, here's it here. At Day Tayman, I went through, they held me naked and soldiers set dogs on me that attacked me. They beat me on the penis, tied it with a plastic cord, and caused swelling and bleeding. One detainee lost a testicle as a result of the torture. About 200 people, including myself, got scabies and scratched ourselves till we bled. When we asked for treatment, they told us, you haven't seen anything yet. The doctor also beat us. There were also cases in which prisoners' teeth were broken. You have another one. During the torture, one of the soldiers raped me. He shoved a wooden stick up my anus, left it there for a minute, then pulled it out. Then he shoved it back in even harder. I screamed at the top of my lungs. After a minute, he pulled the stick out. He told me to open my mouth, pushed the stick into my mouth, and forced me to lick it. I was flooded with feelings of injustice and humiliation. This is what Israeli society is all about. It's a rape culture. This is a journalist. You see the guy in the middle, journalist. The IPS men dragged me to a place where it was so hard to breathe. I was exhausted that I threw myself face down on the floor, and they started beating me again. One of them sat back on my back, another trod on my head, and a third tried to push something hard into my anus. I tried to clench my muscles and resist, but they managed to push it again. Another gentleman here, they ordered me to take off my boxer shorts, and I was left completely naked in front of the female soldiers. Can you see that? I was left completely naked in front of the female soldiers. They blindfolded me again. I didn't understand. Then they beat me with batons and stick. Out of desperation, I tried to push the blows away and fight back, but I couldn't. Just then, they gave me a heavy blow, and I felt one of my ribs break. From there, they transferred me to another place. They threw me to the grounds, and dogs started stepping on me and attacking some of the other detainees. They get the dogs to rape people. People don't believe this. They think, how is it possible that but dogs can be trained to rape people. And what they do is that they put their genitals either on your genitals or put the genitals of the dog in your anus. And the dog then rapes you. They get the dogs to rape the Palestinians. This is how sick and satanic and sadistic Israeli society is. I mean, similar to the level of what you find in the Pol Pot. This is another gentleman who is from the Haldin's Day Teman. Inside the pit, the soldiers beat us. We were about 30 detainees. They beat us the whole time. When we got there, we were surprised. They took us out of the jeeps and kicked us whilst they did. They opened the zip of our overalls and threw us on the ground with our bellies exposed, and then they beat and cursed us. They brought us to lay down and brought in frightening dogs the size of sheep. They ordered 2 detainees to go outside. One of them was a mental health professional. When they came back, they told us outside the soldiers had stripped them and made a large dog climb on them and stand on their chests. The Israeli military was especially interested in humiliating doctors and medical professionals from hospitals in the north. Not Hamas. These are not Hamas.
Brother Yusuf, Al Jazeera, if you go to their website now, they actually produced a video. It's called Bodies of Evidence, Israeli's Darkest Weapon. It's actually a movie, or not a movie, but a documentary of 57 minutes, 42 seconds, unpacking the whole aspect of these allegations of detainees being blindfolded and prisoners stripped, handcuffed, forced to lie on their stomachs, beaten, threatened, filmed, and attacked. They're actually being filmed as this thing was taking place. So if you go there right now, it's called Shackled, Bleeding, and Raped, Abuse in Israeli Prisons on Al Jazeera. Maybe we can just play a short clip, the introduction of it, and then people...
Shackled, Bleeding, and Raped.
Yeah, abuse in Israeli prisons. Yep.
Al Jazeera. Let me just get it here.
If you scroll down, you'll see it. 57.
I think I've got the article. Let me just share the screen. I just want to share the screen here.
Because when we are telling this to the audience, people think we are making this up. People really actually think that now Israeli army was actually labeled as the most moral army ever, right? Do you
that's a
remember
height
this?
of cynicism. Is that it
Yeah,
here, right?
yeah. Let me just add it onto the screen.
That is here. Shaka,
Yeah.
former
Oh,
Palestinian detainees tell Al Jazeera they were chained, stripped, sexually abused and filmed with repeated allegations involving dogs.
keep
Is this
going
the one
down.
here, right?
Keep going down. Keep going down. Keep going down. The movie should be coming there. Yeah, this is the movie. So,
This is the movie, right?
or the documentary, I should say.
Bodies of evidence. I've never, by the way, I haven't watched this. So
Make it large screen.
this is the image.
ما فيش كان إلنا رحمة، اللي شفناه ما حدش شافه في العالم كله.
All charges against 5 soldiers accused of sexually abusing a Palestinian detainee at the Stitayman military prison in July 2024 have been dropped.
Soldiers committing acts of sexual violence against Palestinians.
They were raped, often more than once.
Including minors.
طبعا كانت الظروف سيئة لدرجة ما حدا بتوقعها.
Simply the lives of Palestinian children, it's worthless.
The use of animals, the use of dogs.
I never thought we will come to this. כן, אם הוא נוח'בה, הכל לגיטימי לעשות.
Everything is legitimate. Do you see what he says?
Policy.
It approves rape, it approves torture.
She was taken to Stitayman and she was nude searched over and over again and filmed, and then she was raped twice by Israeli male soldiers, 2 of them at a time.
אירוע בשדה תימן גרם לנזק תדמיתי עצום למדינת ישראל ולצבא הגנה לישראל ולחיילים שלנו. זה אולי הפיגוע ההסברתי הקשה ביותר שמדינת ישראל חוותה.
They don't want to be controlled by a justice system.
في حاجة هذا في السماء أول حاجة. No سافال.
Every mechanism
Get that.
is failing.
It's so incredible what Israel has done in the dark.
Deliberately, intentionally, to be part of the genocide.
That's a documentary, Bodies of Evidence. Obviously, we don't want to strike, but we can't play the whole thing. But just to see how far it goes. I haven't watched this, Mohammed. I must be honest. Thanks for bringing this to my attention.
Can we just pause it? Can we just pause it for a second?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to remind the audience that this is quite graphic. The information that you will receive and you probably watch, it is quite graphic. It's very disturbing. So, for those people who are light-hearted, I would say, turn away. But at the same time, if you really want to see what's actually taking place, and we've been lied to from day one. The claims of the Israeli army being the most moral army in the world, and there's no Israeli soldiers are ran upon morals and standards. This basically debunks it all, and I really want you to comprehend that these are real life stories, real life events. This is not fiction. This is nothing from a Hollywood movie. It is disgusting. Some of the imagery and some of the voices of these people is going to shock you. Myself, Brother Yusuf, I've served in the military myself. I'm a veteran of the British Army. I also served for the United Nations. Yes.
Were you in the British Army?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. So, we were, taught how to interrogate and so forth, but there was levels, there was standards. Okay. Just like a police force here in the UK, we have standards, or they have standards. I was a police officer actually myself for 6 months here in the UK for the West Midlands Police. So, when we interrogate people, there are standards. There's CCTV, there's audio recordings, there's a solicitor or a barrister present, and so forth. My side, there is another officer with me. So, everything is, done by the aspects of law. But this is something that I've never ever come across in my life, Brother Yusuf. This is so disturbing, it's shocking. And I really want the audience to even go to the Al Jazeera website and watch it. Watch this. You'll be shocked. Sorry, Yusuf, go ahead.
No, it's fine. I think people need to watch this, and we're going to give them the link. once we go through these particular videos.
Of the
But it is
custodial
shocking.
practices.
If you were detained, you would be, oh, God knows what's going to happen to you. Mental, physical torture, sexual violence,
The abuse,
including
sexual
rape
violence.
and threats of rape.
Ill-treating and torturing Palestinian children, it's not the exception, it's the rule.
There's only one verdict for the Palestinian. You go to prison. You don't get acquitted. You are always guilty.
صار مخي زي ما بقول علي يودي ويجيب يعني. طب انا ما عملتش شيء ما عليش حاجه. قلت يمكن يحققوا معي شويه.
That chain you saw, you know that chain you saw, that's where they hang people. They hang you either upside down or with your legs.
Very strong nowadays. The feeling of revenge. We have to revenge what happened in Gaza. We have to revenge the 7th of October.
Between the 7th of October 2023 and April 2024, when I saw my client for the first time after the 7th of October, I saw a skeleton. I really saw a skeleton, and I did a menu of the food they were getting. They were getting about 800 calories per day in that period. So they all looked like prisoners from the Holocaust movies.
They look like prisoners from the Holocaust movies.
Other than that, they get beaten. They get beaten all the time.
مر الجزء الأول من النهار اللي هو 5/3 صبح نفس الإيمان. من أول يوم هجم علينا بالكلاب والقنابل وهذا النظام اللي هو التشريف بسموها أو الجمع. هذا أول يوم. طبعا بتنام على بطنك، ايديك مكلبشات وعينيك مهميات في العصبة. بيمشوا عليك بالكلاب، بصيروا يخبطوا فيك.
Regular practices have been severe beating, slapping, burning, broken bones, broken teeth, sexual violence, sexual penetration through objects, and rape.
Also, I saw bruises all over his body, and I saw not just one, I saw 3 prisoners walking down the corridor as if they were just raped. All of them were just raped, and then my client actually told me, yes, just before they brought me here, they raped me with a mop stick.
Something that is recurrent is the use of metal rods, cutting metal that might be knives, metal detectors, bottles, this kind of tools.
إذا مهمتنا ما تصبولا سوناش جمع أو بينو كذا فردي الشغلة ولا ما نرجع على الفاكسات أو على السجن ومشوا بينه وكيف الدم زين مواديا وهو يحط شرايط ومرزات يحممونا.
I just saw the black.
They don't let the Red Cross in since October 2023. And if you don't get the Red Cross and you don't get families visit, so who can report about what is going on in the prison? Only me. Only the lawyer that goes in the prison is the only person that can report on what is going on. But every time I come, they rape him. So then the client asked me not to come anymore. Himself. Now that I can't say.
You catch what he said? He said every time he gets a visit from the lawyer, they rape him. So that means every time the lawyer comes to explain your rights and consult with you, they rape you. So then he says, don't come. Because every time they come in, these are sick people. It doesn't happen in our jails. Of course, the officials, the soldiers rape them. It's not prisoner. You see in the US and in our prisons in South Africa, there's prisoner on prisoner violence, and you may get cases of rape or assault and so on and so forth. Here you've got the officials doing that. That's the difference. The officials, the Israeli Defense Force, terrorist thugs are doing that.
The court cannot help me with this. If the client tells me himself not to come, what can the court do? The court can't do anything. So I think it's on purpose. I think it's a system of the IPS to rape him every time and to torture him. It's not just rape, it's all of the torture, yes? The stress positions, the beatings, the securing of the handcuffs, very strong, and also the rape. All of these together are forms of torture that they do in order to limit the lawyer's visits. They don't like the lawyer's visits.
I've also used statements by whistleblowers who have been collected in Israel. When you put together, they totally corroborate what Palestinian former detainees and their lawyers say, but also they add something more. It's that this sense of incredulity in the face of the absolute power that anyone in Israel.
The former top lawyer of the Israeli military has been arrested over a leaked video showing Israeli soldiers brutally assaulting a Palestinian prisoner. Major General Yifrat Toma Yerushalmi resigned last week, saying she took full responsibility for the leak. She's now being detained on suspicion of obstruction of justice and breach of trust. Those who
So
practice
you get what happened. She's the military lawyer that originally released the rape at this Day Taiman. This was the one, I mean, there's many instances of rape, but the famous one where you see the soldiers actually raping the Palestinian prisoner. She leaked it. And they didn't arrest the soldiers engaged in the rape. They arrested her. And those soldiers that were initially charged for the rape have now had their charges dropped. So all Israeli soldiers accused of raping Palestinians, raping Palestinian women, raping Palestinian children have basically, where they've been charged, the charges have been withdrawn, or where they haven't been charged, the state has resolved not to charge them. This is a sickness we've got.
Are the heroes of Israel, and they are hosted in TV programs with their faces, with their names.
There has been not a real uproar among the Israeli societies.
Today, the racism is not something to be ashamed of. On the contrary, we hear so many, even parliament members, proud of it.
Such widespread torture is not being done by some one guard or this guard or that guard. It's something systematic. It's something that the whole system is aware of.
That's an Israeli lawyer that basically says that it's a policy. It's not an aberration. It's not an individual rogue soldier or a prisoner. This is part of policy.
I'll tell you.
You were saying, Mohammed.
I really want to unpack another clip, and it's only for 2 minutes. If you scroll down, come out of this one. At the bottom, you've got some thumbnails. Come out of this one.
All right.
The Al Jazeera one where you were now. Go down. Keep going down.
Okay, I'm going to go down. Am I back on the main article, right?
Yeah.
Shackled, bleeding, and rape. Palestinians describe abuse. Let's go down. This is a video. This is what I urge people to watch. Bodies of evidence. Israel's darkest weapon.
Yeah, go to bodies of evidence, sexual violence in prison. It's actually just underneath that one. Go back up, brother Yusuf. Go back up.
Go back up there.
I do apologize, brother.
Okay.
Go back up, just under that particular documentary.
Okay.
Let
me
there's
just
some
go up
thumbnails.
there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay, there. Stop there. Can you see the fourth one from the left? It says bodies of evidence.
Bodies of evidence. I see that.
Yeah, if we can play that, if that'd be good.
Let's just play that and see if this shows. Yeah.
For decades, Palestinians have been detained by Israel
Increase the
without charge
sound.
and subjected to torture and abuse. Nearly 1 million people since 1967 alone. But since October the 7th, 2023, increasingly disturbing allegations have emerged of sexual violence inside Israeli prisons.
الصعب الشقف أصعب موقف شفت هاد بري في حياتي ايش الضرب وانا ولا الكهرباء انا موقف شغلنا في الصعب.
In Bodies of Evidence, Al Jazeera's new documentary, Palestinians share their accounts of sexual violence at the hands of Israeli soldiers in detention facilities. The testimonies are painful. Women describe being strip-searched, groped and threatened with rape. Men describe penetration with objects and rape by dogs.
تم اغتصابي بعد تجريد من نفسي عن طريق كلب كبير.
Investigators, legal experts and human rights organizations, including Raji Sourani, point out how common, almost regular, the patterns are. UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese reported to the UN Human Rights Council on what she describes as the systematic use of torture and sexual violence against Palestinians.
It was the norm rather than the exception.
And we hear from an Israeli lawyer who realized what was happening to his Palestinian client.
Only the lawyer that goes in the prison is the only person that can report on what is going on. But every time I come, they rape me.
Eventually, the prisoner asked his lawyer, his only lifeline to the outside world, to stop coming. In 2024, leaked footage from Israel's Sde detention facility allegedly showed Israeli soldiers sexually abusing a Palestinian detainee. Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu called it a propaganda attack that severely damaged Israel's image. Israel's former top military prosecutor, Yifat Tomer Yerushalmi, who was accused of leaking the footage, was arrested and replaced by another general. But the soldiers accused of abuse were defended as heroes by far-right activists and politicians, and charges of sexual assault were dropped in March 2026. Israel denies that the abuse is systematic and claims to be investigating allegations of wrongdoing individually. But bodies of evidence, directed by Awad Juma, argues that this is not the work of rogue soldiers, but rather systematic sexual violence enabled from the top down. You can watch the full film on aljazeera.com and on YouTube.
Yeah, so just for copyright purposes, this is phenomenal. I urge members to watch this. This is the article. It's called "Shackled, Bleeding, and Raped Palestinians Describe Abuse in Israeli Prisons." This is on Al Jazeera. It's an Al Jazeera article. It's on the Al Jazeera website, but I think you can check this on YouTube. But that's what it's called. I think the documentary's name is called "Bodies of Evidence: Israel's Darkest Weapon." Bodies of Evidence: Israel's Darkest Weapon. It's a 1-hour documentary, about 57 minutes to be more accurate. I urge all members to watch this. This will give you a kind of if you can't read the reports by B'Tselem, which we've gone through over the years, like Welcome to Hell and the new document in January 2026, Living Hell. This is one phenomenal documentary. I haven't watched the whole thing, so I'll probably be watching it myself. We just kind of skimmed through some of the issues. We haven't showed everything due to copyright purposes. We just want to point out that we are not stealing from Al Jazeera or showing anything as being produced by ours. It's produced by it's basically produced by Al Jazeera, so it's not our material or our doc. We're just simply showcasing what Al Jazeera has done. Yeah.
I just want to also mention, I really urge, like I said, for the brothers and sisters to actually go to Al Jazeera and go to the article. Also, actually, prior coming and planning for this particular podcast, I actually want to talk about the ceasefire. Okay. Well, it's a kind of ceasefire. And, I kind of giggle sarcastically because, since the so-called post-ceasefire, 983 Palestinians have been killed in the so-called ceasefire. And I'm on about not just, so-called Hamas fighters. You got disabled people being shot in the West Bank. You've got children being sniped. You got, Gaza's Beriji camp, which is of course, a camp where people are just surviving, being killed. Torture still taking place. There are overnight strikes across Gaza while people, are sleeping and so forth. What is actually happening is really, really heartbreaking to see this. I did hear that recently the Pakistani Prime Minister is really urging for this to end. But what actually, his weight of words, what difference are they going to make? You have the Turkish president also saying the same, that this has to stop. But, my final question to Brother Yusuf, and I know it's been an hour and it's been a very, very long day for both of us, that I really want you to kind of touch on this aspect of this so-called ceasefire.
Yeah. Let me start off by saying that the Gaza ceasefire is a total fraud. There was basically a ceasefire that was claimed in October 2025. Everybody knows that it's a fraud rather than a genuine end to hostilities. And I think what the rationale behind this, and many commentators have basically pointed out, that the ceasefire declaration basically was a strategic maneuver and a tactic by the satanic Israeli regime, which served primarily to reduce international scrutiny and public pressure. By claiming that there's a ceasefire in place, what you've done is you've rebranded the ongoing low-grade mass killing as mere, in inverted commas, tests of ceasefire. And so when you say there's a ceasefire, what happens then? The international news coverage then, as some sort of masks a deteriorating humanitarian crisis, or rather the focus basically moves elsewhere. Once you, for example, say that the war has stopped, we are now officially stopping the war, we're now into a ceasefire, but the killing continues. The world knows there's a ceasefire, so anything that may be happening would be an aberration. If you look at the situation, as you quite correctly pointed out, the truce has not stopped any violence coming from the Israelis. The Israeli Defense Force, as it stands now, is still striking and bombing areas in Gaza City, in Rafah, in Khan Yunis. That's continued, resulting in hundreds of additional. You mentioned 900. I think the figures are even bigger, larger than that. It's, I think, close to 2,000, if I'm not mistaken, or 3,000. And it's just basically continuing. The terms of the arrangement also of the so-called ceasefire haven't been fulfilled, because one of the terms was that the Rafah crossing would be opened to effectively allow the food security to enter, but the blockade still remains, and the crossing has been closed, and the malnutrition rates and the aid shortages have basically continued. And Israel, as it stands now, maintains the partitioning of Gaza. They maintain approximately 60% of the entire territory. So the Gazans, who basically are crossing into the yellow lines, they are being shot dead. The home demolitions, they continue. So this whole thing is basically a myth. The Gaza ceasefire is a total fraud. I mean, what was the Gaza ceasefire about? What were the details about? What was it all about? What was it supposed to be explained? It was supposed to be a multi-phase pause of hostilities. The hostilities never paused. There was supposed to be an initial framework of freezing battle lines. That never stopped. There was going to be a partial Israeli military withdrawal. That hasn't stopped. They now control 60%. There was going to be a major hostage for prisoner exchanges. Well, all the Israeli hostages or prisoners have been returned. But now how many Palestinians are still languishing in the Israeli dungeons? Still 10,000. There was supposed to be a scaling up of humanitarian aid. There's been a scaling down. The humanitarian aid hasn't basically entered. If there's a ceasefire, why is there still bombing of Gaza? Why is there still bombing of Gaza? Besides bombing of Lebanon, I mean, the Israeli bombing of the Gaza Strip, you do a systematic assessment of the Israeli bombing of the Gaza Strip after the ceasefire and basically see whether it stopped or it still continued. There have been less frequent strikes, but it still continued. At this particular point, there are strikes that are happening, but you don't get the mass publicity that you were getting at one particular point in time. I mean, the destruction is basically continuing. The casualties and the deaths are still continuing. So the ceasefire is a total fraud. In relation to what's basically happening. I want to try and find a timeline that basically shows that nothing has changed. Absolutely nothing has changed. From August, approximately 2/3, I would say even the entire Gaza, but 2/3 of Gaza has been totally destroyed. 67% of cropland has been totally destroyed. 70% has been totally destroyed. War crimes continue. So there is no stoppage, and the ceasefire has been a total charade. It's a fraud. It's a scam. It's basically an attempt to take up and remove the focus on Gaza's on the genocide that's basically happening in Gaza. These ceasefires are just purely theoretical. There's an article that was written, I think, published by Al-Shakaba. Let me share this for you. I hope it's not a paid website, from the Al-Shakaba website. I'm going to share this. I want people to read this. Here we are. It's called here the ceasefire scam. You can share that. The ceasefire scam. Last October, the Trump administration announced a ceasefire deal. This is the ceasefire scam. But there's no ceasefire scam. The ceasefire basically is not happening. There is no ceasefire. It's continued. Anyone who has been following news from Gaza all over the last will know that this has not been a ceasefire in any jump, because fire has not ceased, certainly not from the Israeli side. Israeli forces continue to occupy large portions of Gaza and have killed hundreds of people, as well as restricting humanitarian aid. This is a podcast, and this is the transcripts of the podcast. Listen to this, which basically shows that the ceasefire is just a total scam. Total and utter scam in terms of what's happening. There's never been a ceasefire. The Gaza ceasefire is a total fraud. Apple Podcasts. Netanyahu's excuse to stall ceasefire is another bloody day in Gaza exposes the sham ceasefire. I don't know if you can see this on your...
Yeah, okay, we can see it. I would love to unpack with you, brother Yusuf, this so-called death penalty now for Palestinian detainees. Hopefully we can do that next time.
We can do that. I've done an article in the local press over this some time back, and maybe we can have a special program on what this death penalty entails and how it's a two-tier system, just like the apartheid regime.
Exactly.
In fact, Itmar Ben-Gvir had the noose, had a pin on him showing the noose and celebrating. I think we showed that when that basically happened. So this is basically the reality. This is in February 2026. The blood continues, and then the world, forgets, and then we are fascinated by watching, I think, what's today, Brazil and Morocco. People will stay up till midnight, by the way. In South Africa, it's at midnight. They stay up. They take leave from work. They don't go to school. Some fanatical people, and whilst that happens, Palestinian footballers are being murdered. FIFA does nothing about it. Palestinians are not allowed to show their flags. I mean, in Qatar, at least you had this mass solidarity with the Palestinians. If that was before the genocide. In the United States, it's totally different under this fascist Trump regime, where you will not be able to express any kind of sentiment or solidarity for the Palestinian people. So there is no ceasefire. The murder and the genocide continues, and we should not be fooled by what we see and what others tell us. And when it comes to rape and systematic mass murder, well, you could clearly see. Have a look at that 1-hour documentary by Al Jazeera. Those who are basically viewing the stream, and see effectively what's going on, that this is the reality of the situation. And so that's basically what I have to say, Mohammed. Unfortunately, our guest for today, Yvonne Ridley, has not turned up. We hope to get her some other time. I think it is difficult to get guests sometimes on programs. We don't know what their schedule are, but I think she's quite elderly now. So in the future, inshallah, we will attempt to get her. I don't know if you got any communication from your side.
Nothing yet. But anyway, I really want to emphasize also, like Brother Yusuf said, is that we cannot forget the plight of the Palestinian people. We can't be blinkered and distracted with other things that are happening around the world. Myself and Brother Yusuf, may Allah bless him, have been consistent in highlighting the plight of the Palestinian people. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala writes this down as a noble deed for us both and those brothers and sisters who watch this and share the link and share the show. May Allah bless you all, because something that we have to do, whatever means we can do, we try to do it. The famous hadith is whoever cannot stop a wrong or a harm with their hand or with their speech, or they can dislike it, and that's the lowest form of iman. Ourselves, we're trying to highlight with our speech and our hands to highlight the aspects of the Palestinian people. And this thing regarding, you mentioned the documentary called Shackled, Bleeding, Raped and Abused in Israeli Prisons. this is really, really disgusting. It really is disgusting, and I'm really shocked that other media outlets, such as we got in the UK, BBC, you got other international organizations like CNN, and even now you got brother Mehdi Hassan with his own media company, and he's actually established now in the UK. He's got his own UK platform also now. Because he did so well in America, he's actually
Zateo. Yeah, no, that's
correct.
phenomenal.
Yeah, excellent work, and I hope for the best for him and his organization.
I believe he's got Owen Jones. We've showcased Owen Jones here, the phenomenal Guardian journalist. He's got an excellent YouTube channel. He'll be joining him. But I mean, check these channels. Check Novara Media. Novara Media as a good example. Owen Jones. Check up and support the Electronic Intifada. Watch regularly Al Jazeera. I know Al Jazeera or somebody has struck us in the past, but we support these channels that expose. It's not about us at the end of the day, and I understand that they take down channels for copyright purposes, whatever the case is, but we still don't speak out against them. We support these initiatives. Owen Jones is a phenomenal, remarkable young journalist. I mean, he's in his 40s, but remarkable. Novara Media. There's the Electronic Intifada. There's Dr. Miriam Francois, a Muslim sister of ours, very articulate, doing phenomenal work. There's even on the alternative right, you've got Tucker Carlson. If you check the Tucker Carlson YouTube channel, Tucker Carlson has been doing some phenomenal work on the Israeli genocide, has been relentless. Support him. Watch Candace Owens, for example. And sometimes you can even tune into Piers Morgan. By the way, whatever one says about him, he gets good Palestinian guests on his program. He's had Norman Finkelstein. We've had Norman. He has a number of good representatives. But more particularly, share, like, and subscribe to our channel, like the COVFF channel. Subscribe and share and like the South African Debate Initiative. This program has been platformed on both these channels. We appreciate the slightly larger viewing on the last occasion, and we want you to share these programs and basically get the information out. And of course, watch the documentary when you have the time this evening. If you're not wasting your time or watching the World Cup, watch that particular documentary and share the information with others. So I think till then, we hope to get Sister Yvonne back at some point. Unfortunately, she couldn't join us today, but we want to get her and some others to continue these discussions.
Thank you, Brother Yusuf. That's a beautiful intro. Really appreciate that. Thank you once again to the audience. Thank you for the brothers and sisters who watched the last podcast. This is really a sincere, a warm-hearted thank you. And I really appreciate all you guys for sharing. And if you need any clips from these, you got full permission to do that, especially on my side. I'm sure Yusuf holds the same opinion. If you want to highlight the plight of the Palestinian people and you want to take a clip from our podcast, you are welcome to do that. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for joining me, Brother Yusuf. Hopefully we'll catch up again on the weekend and we can continue highlighting the plight of the Palestinian people. So once again, thank you for joining us. This is your brother Muhammad Abu Shuaib from COVFF channel, and of course my brother Yusuf all the way from South Africa, from the South African Debate Initiative. Please go out, check out his channel, like, share, and subscribe. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.